As with the previous videos, this is largely about the generation of SQL based on the condition of controls. And in this case, the controls are these checkboxes. The first one is check ER change unseen. The next is check ER change title. The third one is check ER change location. And the fourth one is check ER change genre. And unlike previously, instead of generating a select, we're generating an update. So when the save button is clicked, once again we have a string of the main SQL, and then a string of the clause, where the clause is the variable information which may or may not be set. And once again we have an integer that keeps count of the number of statements within the variable statement clause. So we look at the ER change title, and if that's checked, we set the clause equal to title equal, and then the text from the text box converted to string and trimmed. And then if the ER change location is checked, we get the selected item and convert it to string and put that in a temporary variable called str location. And then we do a subquery where we say location ID equals select location ID from location, where name equals, and the string we got from the combo box. Since we're only updating the DVD's record, and that only deals with IDs, not with strings. The strings are in the other two tables. And we do exactly the same thing with genre, with the same kind of subquery based on getting a selected item to string and then getting the ID from the subquery select genre ID, where genre from genre table, where name equals the genre string we got. And then somewhat different is the checkbox, where we say if the checkbox is unseen is checked, then we set seen equal to false, since it's a bool within the table. And if it's not checked, then it must be true, so we set seen equal to true. And in each case within the section, we increment the number of checkbox count, which for one thing tells us if anything has been checked to be changed, and if nothing's been checked to be changed, this count will be 0. So we just pop up a message box that says no field change checkbox selected, so press cancel instead, because why did we click save if we're not changing anything? And then we have the main SQL, which is an update DVDs, and I have /n, so these look nice in the message box, and put everything on separate lines. And then I have set, and then I take the clause that we've generated and get a substring of that starts at the first index and then goes to the length -2. So basically I get rid of the new line and the comma, because we don't want a comma after the last statement. We want commas between the statements, but not after the last statement. And then I re-add the new line. And then I say where DVD ID equals the convert to string, the global M underscore N rec key, which we got when we called this form via the constructor. And then I have a message box show, which is really for debugging. It shows the generated SQL. And then finally I set a command object, MySql command object, equal to the SQL we generated and the shared connection. and I do an execute non-query on this command object to execute the update. So if we compile and run this and say do a selection of all the titles that start with HAN and do a query, and we see we got Hancock, Hannah, and Hansel and Gretel. And if I select Hansel and Gretel and hit edit, see the initial value is unseen, and if I want to change that, I can check the change checkbox and then leave this unchecked, which means it's seen. First of all, let's go into listing mode and see if we can't find a candidate that's good for test data. And in fact, I have somebody in mind. If I click on Fairy Tale Adaptation, there's Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters, Movie 6, Fairy Tale Adaptation, Scene No, and ID 636. And actually the reason this is a good candidate is I just watched this a couple days ago, and my recommendation is don't watch it. You'll never be able to get those 2 hours of your life back. So why don't we go into the code and select these two statements that create the MySql command object and execute a non-query to execute it, and then do Control E C to comment them out. And this will allow us to look at the generated SQL with the message box without actually changing the data. So if we save and run this, and then I go HAN to look at all the records that start with HAN. And I actually have three: Hancock, Hannah, and Hansel and Gretel. So if I select Hansel and Gretel and hit edit, you'll see the same data we saw in the listing. It's unseen. That's the title. The location is Movie 6, and the genre is Fairy Tale Adaptation. So since I saw this, if I want to change it from unseen to seen, I can click on the change checkbox, and since this is unchecked, I'm saying it's not unseen, so it's seen. And if I click save, you notice the generated SQL just says update DVDs set scene equal to true, where DVD ID equals 636, which is the record number. And I click OK, and if I hadn't commented out of the code, this would have actually saved those changes. But since we're just in debug mode, it just shows us the generated SQL. So let's try edit again, and this time check change the unseen to seen, and say change the title to actually I can just copy this, put it in here, and say change the and to ampersand, and change the movie location to say Sci-Fi 01, and change the genre to fantasy. And if we click save on that, you'll see we get a whole list of set subclauses, like set the title equal to Hansel and Gretel with an ampersand, set the location ID equal to this subquery where it says select location ID from location, where name is Sci-Fi 01, because we changed it to sci-fi 01. A subquery for genre ID, which selects genre ID from genre where name equals fantasy. And notice these are all separated by commas, but the last one doesn't have a comma because we did that substring that deletes the last two entries, which is the comma and the new line, and then it adds a new line, so it'll look nice in the message box with all these new lines. And then we have the where DVD ID equals 636, and click OK, and it would have saved that, except that we've commented out that code. So let's go back and uncomment out this control code by doing Control E U to uncomment, and save and run this again. And say, look at all the records that start with Han. And select Hansel and Gretel and edit. And this time let's change the unseen to seen, since I watched it, unfortunately, and change the title to use an ampersand. And everything else is pretty much correct, so let's just do a save on that. And you see we got the two statements generated because we only had the two check boxes checked. So we're going to change the way the title looked and change the scene to true. So I click OK, and then close everything, or close that, and then go to the listing and do fairy tale adaptation. And you see we have Hansel and Gretel, still movie 6, but the Hansel and Gretel has an ampersand and the scene has a yes, so we have indeed changed those two fields with the update. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.